Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stinchfield. The corporate media's refusal to either not cover the biggest crime in American political history or falsely cover it is a crime in and of itself. John Durham's investigation, slowly piecing together the details of Hillary Clinton's illegal espionage program targeting Donald Trump. All this week, we have been going through the Durham filings, history, and exposing those Democrat operatives who most likely knew about the spying, encouraged the spying, and possibly even planned the spying. The man who I now believe knew every detail about this Clinton-funded direct attack on American governance is Joe Biden, the man who now occupies the White House. I want you to consider Joe Biden's role in the cover-up of this illegal spying plot. First off, in order to cover up something, you have to know it took place, right? So let's go back to January 5th, 2017, when a high-level meeting unfolded inside the Obama Oval Office. Here is who attended that meeting: President Obama, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, now disgraced FBI Director James Comey, and yes, then Vice President Joe Biden. So we now know this is where the plot unfolded to cover up the illegal spying on President Trump that had been going on, to cover up the fact that the Clinton paid for phony Steele dossier, fraudulently used to obtain warrants against Trump and his allies, was a fake. It is the meeting that concocted an in-depth plan to entrap President Trump's incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, ultimately charge him with lying to the FBI, forcing his removal. One key player who could uncover the Clinton-Obama-Biden plot out of the picture now. Next on the hit list, incoming Attorney General Jeff Sessions. He ultimately recused himself after a series of leaks revealed, leaks by the way, that he had a brief encounter with the Russian ambassador. Very brief. Those leaks, I believe, were choreographed in that January 5th meeting now President Biden attended. That left Deputy AG Sally Yates and FBI Director James Comey to hold down the fort, to block any possibility of the Trump team learning about the illegal manufacturing of evidence, creating the now bogus appearance Trump colluded with Russia somehow. The fact that Joe Biden took part in these meetings, as close as he, Obama, and the others were to the Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton herself, there is no way he did not know what is going on. John Durham needs to call in Hillary Clinton herself. He needs to call in Barack Obama, and he needs to summon, yes, Joe Biden, to depose them all under oath about what they knew and when they knew it. And if Obama claims executive privilege, just like President Trump is doing about his meetings leading up to the 6th of January 2020, well, that would prove the hypocrisy of the left. You see, exploiting a contractual relationship with an IT firm to gather internet traffic on a political foe, especially internet traffic, coming from White House servers, Donald Trump's White House servers, with the sole goal of using the information to steal the White House or overthrow a sitting president, all of that, folks, is treasonous. Covering it all up is just as bad, and yet Joe Biden sits in that room where the cover-up all unfolded. It is clear to me President Obama, along with Joe Biden, directly influenced this cover-up to stop anyone inside the Trump administration from learning about the secret Clinton-funded opposition research on Donald Trump. So you either have to be a fool or a left-wing propagandist to think this isn't bad or even worse than Watergate. Or I guess you could be both, a fool and a propagandist. Enter Joe Scarborough of MSNBC.
He puts out a pleading that is just indecipherable. It allows crackpots to lie to their audiences that something is amiss. And you dig into it, and again, there was no wiretapping.
This guy's out of control. Do you see what the devious media does, led by that guy? Joe Scarborough has the audacity to call us crackpots. I'm going to lump in most of us conservative commentators, okay? And what he does, he talks about wiretapping. What does that have to do with anything? They were tracking internet traffic of the White House, of a sitting United States president. It does not get any more serious than that. He knows it, and yet he spews this nonsense.
Everything, Durham admits, was collected legally. Nobody's charged with Hillary with anything. Hillary Clinton, there's not even any suggestion that Hillary Clinton had anything to do with any of this.
His viewers will believe him, but Durham never asserts that the data collection was legal. It's true nobody has charged Hillary yet, and any reasonable person would conclude not only Hillary knew about the spying, but Barack Obama and Joe Biden did too, and yet the media is derelict on its insistence to defend all of them.
This is dangerous disinformation. It's pointing a finger at Hillary Clinton. It's lying about her. It's claiming she may be engaged in criminal activity.
All right, so that is a former FBI agent you get on MSNBC. This is the former FBI agent you get right here on Stinchfield.
Hillary Clinton is a criminal. That's basically what she is. She is a con artist who basically tells people what they want to hear while she enriches herself through a position of power. I think that the Hillary Clintons and members of the left get a big break when it comes to the FBI and charges.
Yeah, that's our FBI agent. Hillary Clinton is a criminal. Her and her accomplices, that includes now President of the United States, Joe Biden, Durham's investigation needs to focus in on all of them. Well, someone who has been working to expose the Russiagate lies for years is former chief investigator of the Trump-Russia probe in the House Intel Committee. I'm talking about Devin Nunes. He says many more Durham indictments could be to come. Former Republican California congressman and now CEO of Trump Media and Technology Group, Devin Nunes, joins us. Congressman, it's great to have you on the program. A lot of stuff to unfold here. What do you make of the last week since Durham released this filing?
Well, it's interesting that Sussman, who the indictment is under, then came back and then tried to get it kicked out. Durham tonight is sticking by his guns. The way that I look at this, Grant, is that Durham is slowly unraveling what we couldn't unravel. We made 14 criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. My goal is that at least all of those get looked at. And I think slowly what you see is he's surrounding everyone who was involved in the Russia hoax scandal. So, look, I've been one of the few guys that has been out there defending Durham because I know people that it just took a long time and people were very frustrated with that. But I just know how hard it was for us to get to the bottom of this. And so you can imagine what Durham is now uncovering. He's actually uncovering things that we didn't even realize because he's getting so much more evidence that the government should have turned over to Congress when we were originally investigating this. So give it time. I'm excited to, look, we all need this smoke to be cleared. The gray, dark clouds that have covered over this country. We're all relying on John Durham to get this done.
Yeah, we sure are. Hillary Clinton, she wouldn't answer any questions when a Daily Mail reporter approached her the other day. She did say this at a public appearance today. Take a listen.
Republicans are defending coup plotters. They've been coming after me again lately, in case you might have noticed. It's funny, the more trouble Trump gets into, the wilder the charges and conspiracy theories about me seem to get.
Congressman, there's a lot of evidence to say this is not a conspiracy theory, and I believe she's out of line. Talk about a coup. She was the chief plotter of a coup against the United States.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I started laughing out loud. I hadn't seen that clip until you just showed it. But, I mean, this is just the quintessential. They always do this on the left. Whatever you accuse your opponent of doing, you're actually doing it yourself. And so, I mean, it's just like not only, did she have she was plotted this whole coup against the president. It was taken over by Obama, by Biden in their White House. Then, of course, you had the hypocrisy of the Biden family all having to do something with Ukraine. I mean, look, I had to live this the last 5 years where we went from, the Russia hoax to the Ukraine impeachment hoax on and on. And look, hopefully the American people are waking up. And that's why, Grant, that's why a lot of people ask, why did I leave Congress? It's because, we have to get our communications architecture back so that we can all communicate with each other as Americans and not be censored by these evil tech tyrants. And so, I think if the more the American people know, the more they have access to information, both sides, all sides of these issues, the better we're all going to be as Americans. And if you believe the polling, it looks like American people are trying to wake up. And I think if we have a successful launch here over the next month with Truth Social, it's going to be a place where everybody can come to, including you, Grant. We want to get you on the platform too.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get there. And I think the work that you're doing is so important, what you're doing over there at Trump Media. Last question for you before I let you go, because the allegations here that she spied on internet traffic, including internet traffic of the White House. How hard is it to get stuff like that? You were on the Intelligence Committee. And what kind of national security risk does that pose that this flows easily to some kind of a campaign?
It's the crown jewels of all the crown jewels across the entire planet. Every single country would be targeting White House communications. And look, the fact that we didn't get this information, this is something that was far beyond what I ever imagined. This is 1,000 times worse than all of the really bad stuff that we uncovered, which was really bad, right? I mean, running spies into the Trump campaign, framing the Trump campaign, using phony opposition research that was actually put together by a Russian national. All of these things we uncovered. We didn't know this. We didn't know they would have access to White House communications. These clearly had to be very sensitive government contracts. And so at this point, Grant, it may even be worse than this. It could be even worse. I mean, I hear these fake news people, explaining it away like, oh, anybody could have this information. Oh, that's a bunch of crap. We really, that's nonsense. And now that they're saying that, leads me to believe they had a lot more information than what they're telling us even today.
Congressman, I've been doing this a long time, covering investigations from Lord knows how long ago. I believe this is just the beginning. You watch. This will continue to unravel for them, and somebody's got to pay for it in the end. Somebody has to. Devin Nunes, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck with your new position there at Trump Media, and we'll get you on again real soon. We appreciate your insight.